Hi everybody, this is the topic 7 video, multiplying a polynomial by a monomial. So 2 topics ago we talked about what the word polynomial means. That means many terms, so that can be 2 or more. We use monomial, binomial, trinomial, anything after that is a polynomial. And then we have monomial, which is always just one term only. So to multiply a monomial and a polynomial, we need to use the distributive property, just like we would in any other case without exponents. So remember that when we're multiplying, we add exponents that have the same base. So it has to be the same variable base. All right, so let's look at this first problem. We're going to take 3 and we're going to distribute it to all 3 terms. So first, let's start with the a squared. So 3 times a squared doesn't have a coefficient. The coefficient's 1, so it's just going to be 3a squared. There's no exponents to add. All right, and then my next term, 3 times 2a, well, 3 times 2 is 6, and then we keep the a. Again, we're not distributing a variable, so we don't have to worry about that just yet. And then my last term, 3 times negative 2, is negative 6. None of those are like terms, so there's my final answer. All right, my next one, I am distributing a 3x. So I'm going to write in that 1 so I don't forget to add it. All right, so let's distribute the 3x to the 2x squared. Start with the coefficients. 3 times 2 is 6, and then x to the first times x to the second gives me x to the third because 1 plus 2 is 3. We add our exponents. Next, 3x times 4x, again, don't forget that there's that little 1 there. So 3 times negative 4 is negative 12, and then x times x, 1 plus 1, is 2, so we have x squared. And then my last term, 3x times 3, we have 3 times 3, which is 9, and then we have an x distributing, there's no more x's, so it just stays a single x. Again, no like terms because they have to be the same variable to the same degree in order to add them. So there's my final answer. All right, the last problem, we're distributing that negative 4x squared. So starting with that first term inside. Coefficients, negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. And then x squared times x squared is x to the 4th. Again, because 2 plus 2 is 4. Next, that second term, I'm going to add in that little 1 so I don't forget to add it. Oops, sorry, I dropped my pen. Negative 4 times negative 2 is positive 8. And then x squared times x to the first is x to the third because 2 plus 1 is 3. All right, last but not least, anything times 1 is just going to be itself, so minus 4x squared. All right, we'll move on to the next slide. Couple more examples. We have to do the distributive property twice in the first 2 problems. So it looks like we're going to have to distribute that 3, but first we need to make sure we bring down that 2x. We can't forget about it. All right, so distribute the 3. There's no variable to distribute, so we don't have to worry about adding any exponents. 3 times x is 3x, and 3 times 7 is 21. Next, we're going to distribute the negative 9 to both terms. Negative 9 times x is negative 9x, and negative 9 times negative 2 is positive 18. All right, so this is the case where we do have some like terms we need to combine. All right, so we've got 2x, 3x, and negative 9x. 2x plus 3x gives me 5x minus 9x, and then I wrote that wrong. We'll change that to a negative 4x. All right, and then we have positive 21 and positive 18, which adds to positive 39. And there is our solution. All right, looking at our next problem, we now have a variable to distribute. Again, remember, p has that little p to the first power. So 2 times negative 4 is negative 8, and then p to the first times p to the second is p to the third. All right, my next term, 2p to the first times 5p, is going to be positive 10, and then p times p is p squared. All right, the parenthesis ended, so we move on to distribute the negative 5. There's no variable to distribute, so I just worry about changing my coefficient. Negative 5 times 2 is negative 10, and then keep the p squared. Next, negative 5 times positive 20 is negative 100. This time, we have a set of like terms, but positive 10 and negative 10 add to 0, so they cancel each other out. My 2 terms that I have left, negative 8p to the third and negative 100, are not like terms, so we just write them in our answer, and that's all we can do. There's our final answer. All right, my last one, I have the distributive property. This time I have two variables. So I'm going to look at the a and the b. Those are really first powers, so I'm writing those in so I don't forget about them. So again, we'll start with our coefficient, move on to the a, then do the b, then move on to the next term. So 2ab times 6a squared b to the third. My coefficients multiply to 12. 2 times 6 is 12. Now my a's, a to the first times a squared, is a to the third. Then b. b to the first times b to the third is b to the fourth. Again, adding our exponents but multiplying our coefficients. Next term, 2 times negative 4. I'm going to add that little a to the first so I don't forget about it, but first negative 8 is my new coefficient. a to the first times a to the first is a squared, and then b to the first times b to the second is b to the third. All right, that's the end of my middle term. Now let's move on to the last one. 2 times 3 is 6, and then a to the first times that other a to the first is going to be a to the second. And then I have that b in front of the parenthesis, but no more b's, so it's just going to stay a single b. Again, these are not like terms. Even though I see a's and b's in all three, they have to all have the same variable to the same exponent. So a to the third, b to the fourth is not the same as a squared b to the third. I would need another a3, b4 in order to add or subtract. So that's my final answer. All right, good luck on these you try problems, and I will see you in class. Thanks for listening.